Hello everybody and welcome back. Good to talk to all of you again today. And today we are taking a look at the work in progress Italian tier 10 heavy cruiser Venezia. Now do keep in mind that this is a work in progress ship, which means that anything that I talk about in this video can and potentially will change by the time the ship makes it onto the live servers. One other thing, recently I've seen some comments in the videos about how audio quality isn't as good as it was before. I do sincerely apologize for this. Part of this is because the area that I'm recording in terms of the room has changed because I moved, and also because there is actually some background noise which I do have to try to put through filters to try to remove. So, I've done some more fiddling. I'm not sure if this video today is going to be better than before, so please, for those of you who have noticed it, let me know in the comment section below. Anyways, moving on to the actual tier 10 ship. So Venezia is part of the new Italian heavy cruiser line, and she comes with semi-armor piercing shells. And these shells basically function as sort of like a halfway point, if you want to think about it, between armor piercing and high explosive. They've got some of the armor piercing mechanics, notably things like overmatch, auto bounce angles, that kind of stuff. But then once that's done, the shell behaves sort of like a high explosive round. It just goes through that much armor. And if you're able to penetrate that much armor, you basically just get straight up penetration damage, which is 33% of whatever the shell damage is. Now, this is really, really effective against lightly armored ships. So ships that you're able to pass the auto bounce check and then basically just say, okay, how much armor do you have? Boom, and you go right through. So if you're running up against like heavy cruisers, if you're running up especially against destroyers, this ship can do a lot of very good damage. However, if you run up against battleships, especially battleships that have like relatively thick side armor, there's not a lot of them, but there's definitely some of them out there, you could just get a lot of shatters and relatively low damage rolls. Now, this is not saying that you can't do damage against battleships. Against some battleships that have thinner side armor, especially upper side armor, you are able to get very, very good damage if they're giving you enough of an angle for you to pass the auto bounce check and then get straight up penetration damage. So beginning opening salvo against the Smolensk, 7 penetrations, pretty good damage. Oh, and by the way, there's Europe. Now, he's a pretty good player, so I have to afford him a certain degree of respect because I know he can hurt me really badly, but with only the rear gun turret, I thought I could take a chance, but he still gets the Citadel there. But my return salvo there does almost 14,000 damage, so it's a relatively even trade in terms of numbers. Of course, I'm a cruiser, that's a battleship, so he's hurting me quite a bit more. So in the grand scheme of things, not really the best of trades, but hey, damage numbers were pretty similar there. But you'll see sort of how SAP kind of works, right? I fired it, big broadside target, didn't really have to worry about the auto bounce check. So then it's just like, do you have enough penetration to get through the armor? Answer, yes. Boom, damage. Now, sometimes you get in situations where you just don't aim at the right places. So against this Montana, I'm just going to screw up the aim constantly because I'm going to aim at a spot that is actually pretty heavily armored, which is the rear gun turrets. And you'll see that when I aim in those areas, the damage is not that great because you'll see quite a bit of non-penetrations, quite a bit of ricochets, right? Few penetrations, not a lot of damage. Judging by the smoke, I was thinking that the Montana is probably reversing, but I guess the reversing was just not fast enough. So the couple of salvos that I punch into this Montana is just not all that great. See a couple more non-penetrations, a couple more, well, one ricochet there. So SAP's damage against battleships can be a bit iffy, especially if the battleships are angled in sort of like bow on or, sort of positions that make you have difficulty finding the really thinly armored bits. So it can be challenging. SAP's major capabilities in terms of doing like lethal amounts of damage is actually directed towards destroyers. Because if a destroyer screws up and comes within sort of easy to hit range for your SAP, you're able to chunk them for some pretty heavy amounts of damage, especially considering your dispersion is actually pretty damn good. I've had situations with Venezia where I've had destroyers screw up, come out to, let's say, like inside 10 kilometers sometimes, and I've been able to hit them for like 15k damage on one SAP salvo. So that's some hefty damage. But, as a destroyer, if you screw up enough to actually get into that kind of an engagement, well, honestly, you do deserve to get punished. And the big reason for that is because Venezia's concealment is actually pretty damn bad. Fully spec'd for concealment 12.4, and that actually limits her a lot. Furthermore, if you actually look down and look at the consumables, you'll notice that all she's got is a damage control, a full speed smoke, which I used against Euro, right? Because I was like, oh man, that's not good. I'll only be that close to Kremlin. So I popped it and I was able to maneuver inside that smoke. That smoke, by the way, has some utility both offensively and defensively, depending on how you want to use it. Other than that, you've got a scout plane / fighter, one of those, and then you've got a repair. And that's it. You have no hydro, no radar, no other forms of utility. And that really at times sort of limits Venezia's capabilities of dealing with things in smoke or, you know, a destroyer that's nearby. Even if you're trying to rush a destroyer, a lot of times you're depending on things like proxy spotting in order to get them. So yeah, it's rough. And that does sort of force you at times to stay a little bit further out, stay a little bit of range, which when you start to do that, it has a tendency of reducing your abilities at times to being able to, you know, have a real impact at times to win the game, right? Like, you can get damage. Damage is really consistent, but the impact that you have in order to win a game sometimes with Venezia is not the highest. She's pretty much dependent upon her own team for support in terms of vision, hydro, radar, you know, air spotting, whatever you want to call it. By herself, she's in a way a bit of a selfish ship. You know, she's really there to get into positions and get damage for herself, and hopefully by placing the damage in the right places, you know, get enough so that the team can win. She's not very good at doing sort of cruiser things that other cruisers are capable of doing. By the way, pay attention to this interesting salvo that's coming in here, and you'll notice that bang, the shell hits like right there, and I just ate Citadel damage. Venezia, even though her overall armor is actually quite good and she's quite a durable cruiser, she does have a rather weak sort of forward and aft Citadel armor. It's only 80 millimeters, so if they're able to get through your bow, your stern, there's a possibility the shell will just be able to pass through that 80 millimeters, no problem, and you take Citadels. I even took yesterday, I think in one game, I think I took like a triple Citadel from a Montana, even though I thought I was actually pretty well angled. So it happens, you know, if they get through and, you know, by overmatch your stern or bow armor, they can get in there and do some pretty solid damage. Anyhow, speaking of damage, Venezia is very consistent in the damage farm, but it's not able to really have games where you're just like racking in that damage. But she's also not going to be in a situation where you just don't do damage. She's just really interesting that kind of way. There, against Kreml, another relatively good damage salvo. Overall, when I've played Venezia, I feel like the ship is like 110,000 plus minus like 30k. I've had some games where I've like rubbed 140, 150k, and then I've had some games that are like 80 to 90,000, and she sort of just floats in that range. Nothing outrageous damage-wise, but nothing so low that you're just kind of embarrassed about it. She's very, very consistent when I've played her, which is good because, you know, it kind of goes to show you that the ship is kind of going to perform at that level pretty consistently, and it's a lot less maybe RNG that, you know, you have sometimes with like the fire spamming ships where you're like, oh, come on, get me a fire so I can get damage, right? Her getting the right positions, get the right salvos off, you're going to get the damage. Like, that's the best way to put it. So in that way, I do like her. You know, she's a ship that I think requires a certain degree of skill to play and requires a certain degree of positioning to play. And if you can sort of master those aspects of her, you know, she will, now relatively speaking, perform quite well for you. And again, this particular game, actually this has happened twice today. I've run into Eurobeat twice in my Venezia. Both times playing those glorious Russian ships. One game was Smolensk and this game Kremlin, so like but oh right, Venezia does have torpedoes, but like these are literally just like sea mines. I don't think of them as torpedoes, okay? They're sea mines. They go 56 knots and they go out to 13.5 kilometers. They don't do a lot of damage and you only got 3 of them, so literally it's just like drop them and hope they hit something, right? Okay, so here we go, another example of SAP in action. Okay, that was a bad salvo, good lord. Hopefully the next salvo will be a bit better. So here we go, against Kremlin, that's giving you a broadside, so I don't have to really worry about auto bounce checks or anything like that. You know, take a look at the salvo going in, and if I hit in the right spots, I should get some relatively decent damage here. So bang, okay, that was only like 5,000, come on. You can do better. Yeah, I think Kremlin's turning in a little bit here. Another salvo. So even like angles like this for Venezia, generally it's not a huge problem to be able to get damage when they're like turning in and trying to angle you, because she does have some pretty ridiculous auto bounce angles. However, when you're running into like multiple battleships and they're all sort of going bow on, then you'll find that your damage is pretty iffy, to say the least. There we go. There's like almost 9,000 with 11. Well, sorry, 10 penetrations, not 11 there. Okay. Now, of course, I'm using this island to block vision, and I'm gonna just get in as many salvos as I can. See, the reload is not the fastest thing in the world. There we go. Another 8,000 damage. Pushing forward a little bit, just continuing to keep this island sort of between me and Euro, so Eurobeat does not get the salvo that he's looking for. I know he's looking for the salvo. I'm not gonna give it to him. There we go. Another salvo here, and only 4,000. Okay. And I think Euro's able to now get to a position where I can't really shoot him anymore because I'm also behind island. Okay, so yeah, I mean, with Venezia, I mean, I just find her to be a ship that is consistent. And like, she's not overwhelming in any kind of way. She's not a ship that I've been in and have gone like, okay, I can, you know, get into every battle and guarantee wins, kind of like the way Smolensk can be. Venezia, yeah, I feel like she's actually reasonably well balanced in her current state. She also does have armor piercing, and the armor piercing is sort of very, very selective use. So when you're running into, let's say, like enemy cruiser that's giving you full broadside, you can take a chance on your armor piercing to see if you can get like huge citadel hits on the enemy ships. And I've done like 20,000 plus, even up to I think it's like 25,000 one time against enemy heavy cruisers. So, you know, and I've been able to, I think, delete some cruisers as well, although those were a little bit lower tier. The Italian ballistics for her guns, really, really good. Although generally speaking, the armor piercing against battleships, especially at range, not all that great. So typically I just go back to SAP, right? Ooh, okay, there's a Zal here. Can I get shots in on the Zal? Probably not. Okay, not liking my position because Zal's there, Republic is there. Not enjoying this, so you can see that this is the defensive use of this smoke, which is just to be able to pop it and then disengage. Now, of course, I can sit here and I can continue to shoot for a while if I wanted to. So if I, and that's I think what I'm going to do here is just try to get off like 2 salvos while I'm moving with my smoke here. But remember, the smoke, once you use it, the cooldown is actually relatively long. There we go. That's a decent salvo against the Republic. Okay, so I'm now going to try to get over here and see if I can get a salvo here on the Salem. Oh, Salem I think is turning. Oh man, I should have predicted that. Okay, and this is not a very good salvo at all because, yeah, did not lead enough. Alright, there's an enemy Zal there. I think we're almost about to win this game, actually. So yeah, I'm just going to get in like one little salvo here against the Zal and pick up what little damage I can left. And that's about all I have to say for Venezia. I find her to be a pretty consistent ship. You know, not too many super highs, not many super lows. Her damage is consistent. She adds something that's kind of new to the gameplay as well, the ability to punish destroyers and lightly armored ships. But at the same time, not like, you know, the ability to outright wreck battleships from any angle. Her damage is very consistent, and, you know, but she does require a certain degree of skill to play. I actually think with maybe some small tweaks here and there, she's pretty much ready to go. Not a ship that is ridiculously broken or anything like that. You know, what do you think? You know, you've seen her in action now. Let me know your comments in the comment section below. Aside from all that, folks, take care. Have yourselves a really good one. And I'll talk to all of you again really, really soon.